Senator Jeff Merkley just hit Marco Rubio with one of the harshest accusations you'll ever hear in Congress, saying his actions are responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of children worldwide. This wasn't politics as usual. This was life and death on the line.
I want to turn to the issue my colleagues have mentioned, and that is there is a legal way to restructure the Secretary of State's department and USAID specifically. But what we saw on February 3rd was Elon Musk say, over the weekend, I tossed USAID into the wood chipper. That's a pretty profound weekend. It didn't involve consultation with Congress over the consequences. There was no rewriting of the law. There was no discussion of what funds could be delayed, frozen, redirected. And the result is different groups have estimated how many people have died to date and will die over the course of a year or a prolonged period as a result of the destruction of the weekend of February 1st and 2nd. Did Elon Musk have your support in putting USAID into the wood chipper?
Well, I don't think that's a X post, or I guess you're imagining a social media post, is not a government action.
Not at all. That's a quote. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's what he said, but that's not ultimately what happened as acting director. Is all these decisions
Did his actions have your full support?
The ones that I signed off on, yes, which is the ones that happened.
Of what Elon Musk did with USAID?
No, but understand, these are contracts. All these
contracts. Did he
contracts.
do it without or with your support? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, not with my support, it was my actions.
His Doge team did a lot of cancellations very, very quickly, and it fired a lot of people. It wasn't clear to me whether that had your support or not.
The Doge team didn't do anything. I did it. I was the one that made the decisions. I went through contracts, literally spreadsheets, line by line. I remember being in a hotel, I believe in Guatemala, going through line by line on spreadsheets of contracts that were canceled, contracts that were approved, contracts that were amended. These are all contracts.
So in that case, I'll put the responsibility with you since you're taking credit for it rather than with Elon Musk. But the Boston School of Public Health has a kind of a website where they post their estimated deaths as a result of the actions that were taken to dismantle USAID. And they're updating it continuously. So you go to it, the numbers keep changing. They have a one-year estimate, but they also have what they estimate has happened to today. And as of today, they estimate that the actions taken in putting USAID in the wood chipper, child malnutrition, 53,500 more deaths. And I'm rounding off because the numbers are continuously changing. Child diarrhea, 45,400 more deaths. Child pneumonia, 59,200 more deaths. Malaria, 25,100 more deaths. So what happened that weekend has resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of children. And the estimate for the end of this year is much, much higher. This happened because the law was not followed for consultation with Congress, analysis, bringing in experts, holding hearings. How do you kind of accept what you just put forward, that it was your action to cancel these contracts? Your contracts in this fashion, freezing fund, firing individuals, has resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of children.
That's false. That's fake. That's just not true. That's a study based on if we canceled every one of these programs permanently. Okay, and I'm reading it right here because I'm glad you brought it up. It assumes a near total freeze in U.S. foreign aid for HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases. There is not a total freeze. 85% of PEPFAR recipients are receiving their care right now. But the numbers you're saying, those aren't real numbers. I understand that's what the school said in the worst case dramatic scenario, and even then I think it's exaggerated. But there's just no evidence of the fact that, I don't remember what the numbers are, 100,000 children have starved to death in the last 4 months because the United States made reductions to USAID. Well, that first of all is pretty atrocious. That would mean that nobody else in the world is doing anything. We're taking care of the entire planet?
Well, I must say, I think your response does not fit with what the published results were, but there's other groups that have done this as well. There's a study in Nature with healthcare experts from a whole number of leading universities, and they said basically if you shut down USAID, and it may not be fully shut down, but my colleagues who follow this closely say, it's 80–90% shut down. And Nature study, or published in Nature, said, look, because of what has happened, we will see some 15 million additional deaths over 15 years just from HIV, producing 14 million orphans and another 10 million people, children and adults, dying from malnutrition, tuberculosis, diarrhea, malaria, and other diseases. And there's even higher numbers from the Friends of the Global Fight Against AIDS. I think it's this rash shutdown without due process of law, that is not coming and doing it in collaboration with rewriting the law, freezing funds, canceling these contracts without consultation, that you have exacted enormous harm on the world.
Again, those numbers you're saying are staggering and unrealistic. The reality of it is, if what you're saying is that unless the United States funds foreign aid at these levels in perpetuity, the world's going to suffer 15 million deaths in 15 years, and every country should be voting for everything we want at the UN.
The number was 15,
because we're basically funding and feeding the world.
15 million in the study of nature, yes, from the shutdown of these programs.
Thank you.
What we just witnessed was more than a heated back and forth. It was Sen Jeff Merkley forcing Sen Marco Rubio to confront the devastating human cost of political decisions. Merkley didn't pull any punches. He laid out the brutal reality. When programs like USAID are gutted, when contracts are canceled, and life-saving initiatives are dismantled without consultation, the result isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's children dying from preventable diseases. It's families broken apart. It's entire communities thrown into despair. Let's pause on that for a second. USAID isn't just some distant bureaucracy. It's the arm of American leadership that funds vaccinations, delivers clean water, provides nutrition, and supports healthcare across the globe. When Merkley cited those studies, tens of thousands of children dying from malnutrition, diarrhea, pneumonia, malaria, he was pointing to the kind of tragedies that happen quietly, far from the headlines, but ripple across generations. Every contract canceled isn't just ink on paper. It means a child who doesn't get their medicine, a mother who loses her baby, a community stripped of hope. Now, Rubio's response was to dismiss those numbers as exaggerated or unrealistic. But here's the deeper issue. By dismissing the studies, by framing them as worst-case scenarios, Rubio sidestepped the moral question. Even if those numbers were cut in half, even if they were a fraction of what Merkley described, would it be acceptable for American policy decisions to cause the deaths of tens of thousands of innocent children? That's the weight of this exchange. It's about responsibility. It's about whether leaders acknowledge the consequences of their choices or hide behind rhetoric. What Merkley did here is important. He forced accountability into the conversation. Too often, these decisions happen behind closed doors, with political leaders treating foreign aid as some abstract budget line. But Merkley reminded us, and reminded Rubio, that there's a direct line between slashing aid programs and the suffering of real people, and that line can't be erased with a shrug or a dismissive rebuttal. This is why Democrat voices like Merkley's matter, because at its core, this isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about values. Do we, as Americans, choose compassion, solidarity, and global responsibility? Or do we allow partisan agendas and reckless decisions to destroy the very programs that save millions of lives? And here's where I want to speak directly to you, the viewer. If you find this kind of breakdown valuable, if you believe it's important to dig deeper than the sound bites, to connect the dots between policy decisions and human consequences, then this is why you should subscribe to Democrat Arising. Because here, we don't just replay the clips, we put them in context, we explain what's at stake, why it matters, and how it affects not just politics, but real people's lives. By subscribing, you're joining a community that believes truth should never be drowned out by deflection, and that leaders must always be held accountable. So when you see Merkley press Rubio and refuse to let him dodge, remember, this is the kind of oversight that keeps democracy alive. And it's the kind of conversation we'll keep bringing you right here.